Hello everybody and welcome to this week's bonus podcast. We're back with bonus podcast for a little while at least, because it is halfway through the year and I could not let the week pass without us doing our traditional how do you think the year's going so far on Coronation Street. I'm here with lovely Gemma.
Hello.
We're both very hot and also I've got a croaky voice for some reason. Oh, you're hot? Yeah, I am hot. I'll admit it is the hottest day of the year. I got a sore throat. No, actually, I didn't have a sore throat. I did have it on the other day.
Having a milky drink is not going to work.
I know, Gemma bought me some nice coffee drink, and I think it's a mistake. But
it's a milky coffee
me pouring it is a mistake. But anyway, you don't care about that. You want to know about Corrie this year. You've been watching it. We've been watching it. What did we think about it?
Well, this is interesting because this is obviously Kate Brooks as producer, first 6 months.
Yeah, this is we say this is a 2025 so far, but what this really is how's Kate Brooks been getting on her first 6 months of the year. That's what we're really getting down to brass tacks about today.
Now, in my old job, I only ever had, what is it called when you get, like, you have a meeting about how you're doing?
Appraisal.
I only ever had one of those because my boss thought they were boring, so we never did them because I kept bringing stuff up that was kind of awkward for him to address. So he didn't want to do it anymore.
Well, this is Kate Brooks.
So, but I don't know how they go generally.
Usually the person is there.
Do you do compliment sandwiches?
Well, I think we just need to say it as it is, really. Because, yeah, you're right. This has been her first 6 months. She's still got Ian McLeod over her as her boss, although he's now moved on to other things as well, but I'm sure he's still there.
He's been promoted twice
pulling the strings
since we first heard that Kate Brooks was going to get the job.
Yeah,
hasn't he?
And I mean, she's been working on the show now. She's been at Coronation Street for over a year, hasn't she? So This is definitely her vision. I'm sure there's still bits of it that maybe are remnants of things that started as she was getting things in motion there. But this is definitely, at this point, we're looking at Kate Brooks' vision for the show. And it's quite interesting for us as well. Obviously, we were back in November at the Coronation Street studios for the press day there, and we got to see Kate talking about her vision for the show and her ideas. So it'd be
you even got a special interview with her.
We did get a special
which was really nice of everybody at Corrie to help us to get that.
So it's kind of interesting to look at this year's show so far through the lens of people who got that preview and what were our expectations for 2025 and how are they going so far. Are there any particular things that she mentioned back then that you were like, oh, I can't wait to see that? What could she be talking about there? Or that sounds, I wonder if that's going to hit the mark.
Well, yeah, I mean, the things that stuck out to me at the press event were her talking about non-linear storytelling, which I thought was intriguing because I don't recall us really having that on Corrie before, and obviously that Mason's stabbing episode was the wildest example of non-linear storytelling in the entire history of Coronation Street.
I think I would not disagree with that.
The only time I can really think that we've had something similar is when Imran had that flash forward during his death week. That was interesting, but it was in no way as ambitious as what happened with that episode. And I know that episode went down really well, but fans have short memories, so we're not. I count myself in this group too, but I think there's been a lot of negative feedback about Corrie at the moment. It's really difficult because they take risks, and that is obviously going to polarise people, isn't it?
Mm.
But so that was one of the things that she said that I thought, okay. I mean, at this point, we have ghosts and weird cameras things, and it's clear that Coronation Street doesn't want to be put in a box as far as very bland, straight by the numbers.
Traditional.
Yeah, okay, whatever you want to call it. They didn't want to be put in that box. They want to experiment with stuff. So that I was up for that. That's fine. Also, the two characters returning, or however you want to say, to the show. Rob coming back. Rob was actually the actor. Mark Michaelis. He was actually in this building as we were talking about this, but I don't think we got to see him.
No.
And also the fact that they were going to cast Carl Webster and bring him back. not that I like Carl that they've brought back, but I also kind of like hating him, the same as I like hating Theo. And I also think that Kate Brooks's first 6 months has been, well, like you said, she's been in on that at the helm for a while, longer than 6 months really, but it's been characterised by a period of flux for the cast. So we know that lots of big exits have happened, and I think that lots of them weren't her decision because they'd already been put in motion. Some of them definitely are. Some of them surprising, some of them not. And we've also had new characters come in, like the Michaelis, and
they've been main newbies, haven't they?
We learned about them, and she said they were, they were a lot of fun, but I wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of them. She was very cryptic, but I think everything she said has come to pass really, because they are fascinating. I don't know what the status of them is on the show, because obviously Mick's in prison and Lou has got a very tenuous kind of status on the show. I think they're both really great characters. I hate Mick, but again, I think a lot of people, we really need to think about the fact that you might not like a character, but they're really important for the plot, and not everybody is there to be liked. And if everybody was just boring and nice all the time, the story there wouldn't be one, would there?
No, there's not. But
and the actor who plays Mick, hats off to him, because he is incredibly sinister.
Yeah, my view of Mick has really had his ups and downs over the period that he was on the show. Because when he came in, I was really gunning for the Michaelis family. I like the idea that they've moved somebody into Maudsley Street, which is so underused on Coronation Street. I mean, they haven't got proper sets for them, have they, or anything like that. But when they came in, it was like, oh yeah, we heard about this back in November. I really hope that they do well. And I enjoyed that they were fun. I got the impression from the event that they'd be a bit more Battersby-ish, in that they'd be the neighbours from hell, but in more of a fun way. And when they came in, we saw little bits of that, because they were, knocking on, was it George's door, and then running away, laughing in the middle of the night. But it very soon turned out that Mick was a very nasty piece of work. Yes. And then I almost feel like I'd been betrayed or tricked or something. I thought, I thought I was going to like this guy in a kind of Les Battersby sort of way. And I know Les isn't popular with everybody, but then as the month then went on, I much more felt this is good. I'm not supposed to like him. This is good. I can get behind a character that I know I'm really not supposed to like. And this is why I'm still myself in a kind of state of not really knowing what to think with Theo, because I know there's just something that's not quite right about Theo for me, but I don't know for sure that we're supposed to feel that. And even with Kit, I'd really like to get behind not liking him, but I think that they're putting a little bit too much that we're supposed to be enjoying about him or sympathising with him with. But we even are with Theo a little bit, so I'm just a bit more hesitant in my all-out hatred of him. But then we've also got, of course, Brody as well, the third member of the Michaelis clan, and Joni and the other one. Sorry, I can't remember what her name is. Which we've not seen, and I don't really like Brody, but we're not supposed to like him, so I'm a bit tepid on the Michaelis, apart from Lou, who I think is absolute Corrie icon. It's very early days, but to me, she screams exactly what the kind of person is that Corrie needs, and I know not everybody agrees with that, but I love how campy she is. I love how in your face she is. I like how she is what she says on the tin kind of character. Yeah. Definitely Marmite, but the actress is just so captivating for me, and I think that she could, who knows where things are going exactly, but she could be someone who could, in the right hands, if the right decisions were made, be on the show for a good long time to come. But time will tell with that, won't it?
I find it quite striking that Kate Brooks is obviously ushered in, or that a lot of characters have come in, who have been quite grey characters, and I don't know whether Corrie always does this with, think about we had that the picture of the new lads, and we had Theo and Carl and James.
Yeah.
And James is already characters on the show, so his personality's been established. But the other two, you know, dodgy weirdos. And Mick.
Yeah.
He's also dodgy. Kit's dodgy. I think that Lisa's really complicated. I know that she was brought in before, you know, Kate Brooks, but she's developed under Kate as a very complex woman who doesn't always do the right thing in every scene, isn't just there to be liked, it's so easy to try to write somebody that everyone likes, but it doesn't work because you look at Bobby. They wanted us to like him. They tried to make him funny and charming and like irascible and give him all these jokes. It just didn't work because they were trying to make us like him.
Yeah.
But I like these morally grey characters. I like the people that don't make easy choices or not the right decisions. It's complicated.
I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with them, even though I know that the deeper, more complex and morally grey characters can be more interesting. I sometimes just like a full-on, this is a villain, hate him, or look at this lovable character, isn't she precious, or isn't she hilarious, you know? But
even Lou, that, you know, you really like Lou, even Lou is quite a villain, true. Really
in some ways.
She's a victim of Mick. She's but she's also making her own decisions. She's, you know, free of his influence. She's told him, I'm going to move on from you. And her strategy for doing it is to blackmail Gary. Like, what an interesting person she is. Yeah. She's not... I like it when a character does stuff you can't defend.
You talked about some of the other characters that were teased at the press event earlier, and the other stories. Rob's return. That was what got the biggest gasp in the press conference, and it's one of these things that I wish hadn't been spoiled, and it would have been great to have seen him pop up again.
Well, you went to a press event.
I know, but you know, in general, I think that overall I was semi-happy with Rob's return. It's always good to see people back that you don't expect to come back and cast, and it reminds you of some of your favourite times on Coronation Street. But I'm not sure that they got his character completely right, and I think they went a little bit... this is me just being fickle again. I've said I want all-out villains, and they did make him that, didn't they, this time? I don't think he was particularly morally ambiguous at all. He was a little bit... Yeah, he had more layers to him and shades to him back in the day, and he was just a little bit too much out for himself and full on nasty. Although the scene with him and Tracy, you know, they remember the hostage episode with in number 1. That I really did enjoy, and having them call back to their relationship, and everybody loved Rob and Tracy, and everyone says, oh, Rob's the greatest love of Tracy's life. That for me was some absolutely outstanding writing and performing. Mark Bayliss, what an absolute star he was during that episode, and maybe I wish we'd seen a little bit more of that side to him than just the I'm going to escape from prison and I'm going to steal your kidney, and that we got. Of course, you can't talk about the Rob return story as well without remembering that awful flip over the banister in that episode that was, I think, supposed to be really, really exciting, but just with a massive flub, in my eyes at least. It really, really didn't work for numerous reasons, and it's a shame.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, I suppose, with his comeback comes the like you said, the proper the first main development of Swala. They got together under Ian McLeod, but really Swala has been Kate's baby, hasn't it? And that's been really interesting to see develop. And like you, I quite like the fact that, especially Lisa, doesn't always do the right things. And I do like them as a couple.
I like how prickly and defensive she is, and like how stubborn she is, and like I always want to characterise her as a goody two shoes because she's got that prim look about her, and she's got the preppy style, and so I kind of think of her as like a swotty kind of like rule follower, but she's not. She's really started to crack, hasn't it? I think that she's been doing it for a long time now.
I suppose in many ways maybe she was. I always think back to that episode a year, 2 years, I can't remember ago, where Amy spiked the drink of the guy in the club, and Lisa kind of just let her off with a bit of a slap wrist, even though it should have been more, because she knew that she had a bit of a thing also against men and predatory men, and she kind of half supported but couldn't really say it what Amy was doing. And we've definitely seen her go a little bit more renegade in the last few months because of her personal connections to some of the cases that she's been working on, especially those related to Becky and what was going on there. And that's been the mystery in the last few months that I think has been my favourite part of the Swyler story so far. Just there's more, the intrigue, there's more to it. Betsy started to find out a little bit. So it's kind of gone a bit cold, hasn't it, in recent weeks? But Betsy knows that Lisa was being investigated for fraudulent activity before she was hit by that car. She'd had that falling out with Lisa, so things left on bad terms. And yeah, and even we had that return of Logan, didn't we, when Carla and Lisa went to... Oh, no, sorry, it was when Betsy and Lauren went to see him in prison. So I am definitely somewhat intrigued there. And obviously we're going to have a lot more of Carla and Lisa to come. There's talk about them buying number 6. I mean, this has been rumoured in the fan community for months, hasn't it? And they're being very slow about it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. I'm just not sure when. Well,
yeah, that brings up two kind of... extra discussion points, doesn't it? The Carla and Lisa scenes are always gonna have, well, I mean, they involved prison and police and hospital scenes. Police, prison and hospital scenes. And that's been a massive criticism of Coronation Street. These sets get overused. I think my wish wasn't one of my wishes for the new year that somebody should set fire to one, at least one of those sets, and they still get used all the time.
They do.
It's very frustrating. So
it's not a Kate Brooks thing.
No, it's not.
It started before then. We've been complaining about Corrie being a little bit like a cross between Casualty and The Bill for a good 12, 18 months now, but nothing's been done in the slightest to try and improve that, which has been really quite unfortunate. But I suppose if you're going to have these police officer characters. I mean, if you look at a top 10 appearances so far, unsurprisingly, Kit's at number 1, Lisa's there in the top 5 as well. And then I think we kind of predicted that it was going to go this way at the beginning of the year. They clearly wanted to put, especially Kit, under the spotlight. So you're going to have these police scenes, but to me, it still doesn't feel Corrie enough. And I don't particularly mind an overused set if it's a set that feels Corrie. People back in the day didn't say, the Rovers is on screen again. No, did they? Right. I mean, Rovers was pretty much a feature of every episode of Coronation Street for many years, and nobody said, I can't believe they're going back for a pint again. But it's the police and the hospital, it doesn't scream Corrie to anyone.
It makes me laugh too, because I remember when they made Craig a police officer, I think one of the things we were like, how is this even going to work in a show like Coronation Street? Because what opportunity is there for Craig to be a police officer? It kind of is going to be shoehorned in. And since then, he's become, he's dead now, but he became like the tertiary police character, because we had 2 other ones that were far more prominent, which brings me to the second discussion point that I mentioned a minute ago, and that is the exits for this year, because we've had some very major ones, haven't we? We
have. This has been the year of the Corrie exodus. When it all started back around, was it Christmas, January time, when they started to be announced and they were being leaked in the press, and you had Charlotte Jordan on the front of the Sun, and then you had other stories like Corrie Insider reveals that so-and-so is going. But I can't remember a period in Corrie history, recent history, or any Corrie history, where we've had such a revolving door of people making their departure from Coronation Street. And I remember there was a period, whenever it was, 5 years ago, when you had, or longer, when you had Rana and Bethany. Do you remember? There was a bunch of
there was a bunch of women who went all at the same time, and everyone was saying, Coronation Street's losing its best characters, how are they going to cope?
Yeah, but this feels like that even more. And it's not even done yet this year. We've had more departures announced, which we're not going to talk about here, spoiler free. But I can't believe how many they're shedding this year. And some of them, it's like, okay, I'm not too fussed about that too much. Maybe this was the right time for them to go. But I am really sad to say that there's been some real strengths of Corrie that are gone now. I mean, top of the list for me, I think, has to be Daisy.
I always thought this though, when Daisy really got into her stride, I think one of the things I kept saying was Charlotte Jordan is a treasure and Corrie needs to hang on to her because she could really be, a new bet. Like, not obviously in any way a replica of that character, but just as popular as Bet was, genuinely, Daisy, I think, because she, she's so young, so beautiful, so talented, such an interesting character, so many fascinating storylines.
She was fascinating to observe and watch. Also morally grey.
Yeah.
And I've talked lots of times before about my roller coaster ride with Daisy, but overall I did love her as a character and absolutely gutted that she went. But at least she got a really good exit and a good exit story, which is more than you can say for some of them. Like, we obviously had the pregnancy for Daisy this year. We had the Who's the Daddy with Kit and Daniel. That reveal at the Rovers quiz early this year, where she gets on the mic and is like, okay, here's a question. If Daisy sleeps with Kit and Daniel, who's the father? That was an amazing moment. And also, I think it was a bit of a surprise reveal as well. We didn't know that the pregnancy was going to come out that soon. Then we had Christina back, who was a character that we both kind of like before, but this time Christina was just superb all the way through with her kind of deviousness.
Super saucy and camp.
I love a devious, campy villain, and Christina was right there, even though their victim, I suppose, for lack of a better word, was Jenny, one of our favourite characters. I was still right along there with the ride for there. Then we also had a little bit more about Daisy's dad. Finally, Greg got a name. We got a bit more reveal about what happened at the time of Tom's death, only for an episode or so. But that theory that I'd been clinging on to for the best part of 5 years, that Daisy was partially responsible for, at least in Jenny's eyes.
Yeah, blamed for it.
For the death of Tom. I was chuffed with all of that. And then you got the absolutely outstanding final scene where she's there stealing the money. You didn't know how it was going to go. We were all convinced that, Christina would be swanning off with the money with Dom, but then the sting in the tail, the absolute unexpected twist. She's there with her glasses, back of the taxi, turn up the volume, driving off into the sunset. You had I forgot what it's called, the voiceover shots of her with Daniel getting the money and
weird.
Julie.
Yeah.
I just adored that episode so much. So although I'm really gutted to have lost her, I'm thinking she's not been killed off. She could come back. I know she's over on The Archers at the moment, isn't she, Charlie? But that was how to do a Corrie exit that isn't just a back of the taxi kind of thing, which is what
she literally was in the back of a taxi.
I know. Okay, that's how you do a back of a taxi well, not like we got with Yasmin, for example, which I think, she'd been on the show for 10 years and she was just over and done with, 2 episodes?
I'm going to London.
Alia, I'm going to London to work for a charity. Bye, Gran, off you go then. What was that?
Well, I'll tell you what wasn't underwhelming, and that was Mason's exit.
Let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, we've already... The thing is, there's so many things that happened in this 6 months. We can't really go into depth about any of them. And I think we already have spoken a lot about Mason and why. I mean, that was lauded. Everyone loved that. And it's funny how quickly people seem to forget what a great episode that was.
I don't know whether people do or not, but it has kind of it got some awards nominations, didn't it, at least? Only nominations, sadly, at the British Soap Awards. But that was another one that people didn't quite know what they were getting when they were going in for it. It had been, teased and like, oh, you don't want to miss this episode, this is a big one. I remember that was another thing that they mentioned at the press day last year, and I was thinking, oh,
there's going to be a stabbing.
Knife crime, stabbing, yeah. Okay, we've kind of had a bit of a knife story already with Mason. How's this going to be any different? And then we got, those rumours that Mason was going to get killed off in the episode, but nobody was completely sure. So you went into it completely blind. And then you had, how did it work again? It was like an alternate timeline, wasn't it?
Where it was like, what would have happened? It's like sliding doors. Like, what would happen if he hadn't, that the knife hadn't been there? Really, really clever.
And I think it did such a good job that a lot of the people who will say, that's not Corrie, still said, but I still thought that they did a cracking job with that, which they really did.
Well, I mean, and if we're going to talk a bit about That's Not Corrie, I think that's been one of the things that has dogged Corrie for, I think, a lot of Ian McLeod's tenure, to be honest with you. And I'm still going to count this as a McLeod influence, because Kate Brooks is the producer, but she's not the sole. The buck doesn't stop there, because there's creative over.
Yeah, I don't know whether at this stage I'd be able to put my finger on any aspect of Corrie at the moment and say that's Kate Brooks's mark there. That isn't something that I would say was part of Ian McLeod. Well, maybe they're bit more. Maybe it is a bit more than non-linear storytelling. But we did have flashbacks and a few flash forwards under Ian McLeod, didn't we? I think it's maybe ramped up a bit now. We've maybe seen a few more ghosts on the street, for lack of a better term.
I really do think that there's like this kind of like surreal element of Coronation Street that I would say happened when Kate Brooks came in. The ghosts, the event episodes, the flashback stuff. Like, you say that's not Corrie, I say the biggest that's not Corrie episode was the flashback episode to the 90s.
Oh yeah, no, that was 2000
or whenever it was. I keep saying 90s, but yeah, there was definitely a bridge between those two, with Kit and Mick.
Yeah.
Like, bonkers. Honestly, what a concept, for what an audacious idea. It didn't work for me at all. I still, like I said before, that whole week I felt like, I ordered steak and you gave me chocolate cake, and it might have been really lovely, but it wasn't. It's still not it's still not a steak.
Yeah, you were talking about that as being the week after the flashback, because the flashback was the Friday, wasn't it? And then it was Craig's exit week, the following week.
That was all part. That flashback episode is really gregarious. What is it called?
One of those.
One of them things where it's like, this is not right at all, but people loved it. Like, the Mason episode, not really Corrie, but I loved it. The flashback episode, not really Corrie, and I hated it, really. And then that week of Craig's death was so well done, I think. I don't remember whether I said that at the time. It's really hard to remember what you thought. But all the strange event episodes.
Yeah, event episodes. Maybe that's Kate Brooks's thing.
Yes.
Because I don't remember that being quite such a big deal. We had a few. Obviously, last year we had the Paul's final day episode, or with the inside his head Paul monologuing back in, was it July last year or August? I can't remember.
That's right.
But it feels like this year we've had a few more of those. The Mason episode was event TV. So was the fire. So was Craig's Death Week. So was the flashback. So was the episode where David got hit by the car as well.
Yeah.
That felt very different.
Because we had this internal monologue.
And that was also a bit time jumpy, wasn't it? You're right. You had his internal monologue and the camera was swinging round him, and he was counting down how long until he's arranged to be hit by a car. Sadly, I still think the whole concept of that, David planning for his own death,
that was a mistake.
I didn't feel in character
but it
enough.
was artfully done.
It was artfully done, and I get that the family were in a desperate situation, but I felt
it didn't really make sense.
No, and I guess it's a little headline grabby. I mean, event episodes will be, won't they? It's hey, I think there's been more trailers for Coronation Street in the past 6 to 8 months than there had been in the year or two before that, because they're billing these big episodes. You don't want to miss this. But then you also got things like, do you remember the episode where Debbie gets her dementia diagnosis? And that wasn't an event episode per se, but the quarter of the episode before the first advert break was pretty much just her talking to camera.
Yeah.
And talking to camera, and we are in the position of the doctor, and that was really, really brilliantly performed, and I do like it. I do wonder how long I'm going to continue to like them, and each one of them has been slightly novel. We've only had one proper flashback episode, we've only had one camera spinny episode, we've only had one alternate reality episode. How many different concepts can there be until we say, oh, this is a bit like Mason's death though, wasn't it?
Aadi's party, obviously, as well, with the way they told that story.
Just a recent event.
And the siege at number 1 was also an event episode. Now, massive props to Kate Brooks for these creative decisions. I don't want to take anything away from it, because I think she's doing. I think that it's really. I think brave kind of makes it sound like it didn't work. I think it's great to take risks, and I think that on the whole they're paying off. But I do wonder how much of it is driven by budget cuts and not being able to do stunts. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because I do think a lot of the time when Corrie, you know, if Corrie is sitting around going, right, we need to boost the numbers, what can we do? Let's do a stunt. Let's throw money at this and, you know, blow somebody up or run someone over or set someone on fire. It's not easy to do, because obviously there's logistics and money that has to go into it, but it's not difficult to think of, is it? It's like, what stunt can we do? I assume the budget for stunts aren't there anymore, and so the writing team, the storylines, and everybody are being. It's like necessity is the mother of invention in a sense, and they're doing so well. I know that their budget is being crushed, and I know that they're having to. They can't do certain things they used to be able to, but I really do think that they're thriving with this pressure that they're under. I don't know how sustainable it is. Like we've just said, there are only so many wacky alternate storytelling devices that exist in television, and so once you run out of those, what do you then do?
Yeah, but for the time being, I would say that I am enjoying the event episodes. I don't think there's been one where I think, oh, that really didn't hit the mark for me.
Well, the flashback for me, but
yeah,
you know,
well, maybe if it counts as an event, I don't know, the Rob, Lisa, Carla siege with the banister flip. I can't remember whether that felt eventy or not.
That's
but on
like
the whole,
more of that was a snafu with the stunt work.
Yeah, but just the episode as a whole didn't quite work for me. But on the whole, they are getting me excited, and I tune into those thinking, this is going to be a good one. And on the whole, they're not disappointed. Or maybe sometimes I'll tune in going, I'm a bit on, you know, the party episode and the Mason stabbing episode. I was thinking, I don't know whether this is going to be good. But on the whole, for me, they have hit the mark. But then you get the problem of after the big event, then usually it's like, send in the police, send in the ambulance, and it just invites more hospital and police scenes. So you got to take. I just wish that they could. Yeah, they're building up this massive climax, but there's only one way that most of them can then go afterwards. You know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, obviously, not to say that there weren't stunts, because there were big stunts. I mean, they set fire to the Platt's house, and that's like one of the most.
That was CG though.
Yeah, but that was one of the most significant changes to the set that I think we've had.
Yeah, for a good
For a long time. I mean, we had scaffolding outside the Rovers.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, that was outside number one, wasn't it?
And then we had the Rovers being boarded up. But as far as, you know, changing the way the street looks, that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I kind of want to go on the set. I need to go back on the Coronation Street tour to get my head around what the new Platts look like, because they're walking past it a few times, aren't they? I want to see what does it actually look like. And I'm all for making some changes like this, because I've said for years that the main street has remained stagnant, I'll say it, for a little while, whereas back in the day they'd be making changes all the time to it, well, more regularly than they are now. So I don't mind that the Platts changed, and I actually do still really love the decor that they've got inside. I like the herringbone floor, I like the big picture of Elf, I like that they've got Vin Diesel the Weasel back, and I think it's, a modern take on a set that had been, while traditional, well, not traditional, while, beloved, it had been on screen for 30 years, it was getting a bit long in the tooth, and I don't think that David or Shona would have said, you know what, let's put it back to how it was. I think it's working well.
I think it's funny that we've got a big picture of Archie and a big picture of Elf as new additions to two sets.
Yeah, that is true.
I like that. I think
giant pictures of big fat old grey men.
Now, I know this is not about what things could be, like predictions or what we'd like to change, but I do wonder whether there is scope for getting rid of that Audrey salon and putting something else there, like just demolishing that. The whole thing and the flat.
Yeah, see, I thought that Audrey's salon was on its last legs a few years ago, and they have been using it more now, haven't they?
They have.
With the scenes with Maria and Lou, for example.
Yeah.
But again, that's been there since when did Denise open that? 91, 90 or so, something like that?
How long's the building been there?
Yeah, since the early 90s.
I mean, that doesn't have to be a salon. That could be a bakery or...
Yeah, well, I mean,
juice bar or...
Trim Up North has now been completely wiped off the face of Coronation Street, hasn't it? And nothing's been in there to replace it. And that always was a bit odd, having two hair salons. It would have been quite a bold move to have said, let's keep Trim up north. Let's put something else in the salon.
Yeah,
but they haven't.
Now
so.
Audrey has a permanent place on the street in the Platt's house. She doesn't actually need... The salon was always there because Audrey needed a reason to be on the street because she didn't live there. She lived in Grasmere Drive. But now she's based in the Platt's house. The idea of getting rid of the salon and the flat above it would be so tempting to me. Now, the thing is, it's all attached to the streetcars and Carla and Lisa's flat at the moment. Really interesting to imagine what could go in there. They could have another little block of flats or something.
I think they need to do something with the cabin first, though.
What cabin?
Seriously, what cabin? Yeah. Jenny has been sent there to...
It's like she's been sent to Coventry.
Really, really is, yeah. Cabinetry. That's another, going back to... We're going round... These discussions always go roundabout and then we eventually work back to where we got from. But we were talking earlier about the exits earlier, weren't we? And it feels like Jenny's just gone we've not seen her at all since Daisy went.
She didn't even turn up at the drag night to complain that she wasn't invited.
No, but yes, since Daisy's exit, we've not seen her at all. No, I'm not happy with that. Who else has gone? Max has left. That's been a shame. And
yeah, I don't know why. It didn't feel needed to me.
It didn't feel completely in character for him to set fire to the house, I'm gonna say.
No.
And odd how they had that massive fire, but nobody died in it. Even though Yasmin, she was gone a few weeks later. Surely they could have.
I mean, we've had so many exits that somebody could have died in the fire, and I think it would have been. I don't know why they didn't do it. It feels like a missed opportunity because we had to write all these characters out somehow, and you're going to have a fire. And the trouble is, we did an episode about fires. There have been so many different fires on Coronation Street that they all kind of become quite samey. Because the consequences are what's important, don't you think?
I just couldn't take my mind away from the fact that they were doing a kind of fake one-take shot for the fire. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And it didn't quite work for me.
It was ambitious again.
And I could tell that some of the flames there were CG, and I was just... you shouldn't compare, but you can't help it, can you? I was just thinking, this isn't the best fire they've had on Coronation Street. And along with all the rest of the conversation that's going on about budget cuts and rumours and finances, it was just a little bit of a shame that it didn't quite work out for me. Who else has gone this year?
We got Mason, Yasmin, Max, Daisy. Now
we've talked about all of those, haven't we?
Craig is probably the highest profile exit that we haven't spoken about yet because
we talked to him about a bit.
He was killed off.
That was a bold decision.
Yeah, that was shocking to me because Colson Smith, very popular in the cast and crew, I know, and he's made a big career for himself off of Corrie with his podcast and presenting stuff. He was great during lockdown with the Corrie Good News. Yeah. He's just seems like a really good guy, and his weight loss stuff and his running, his kind of physical and mental transformation.
Really, really inspirational.
He is, and to kill a character off is kind of a big deal. He it wasn't his choice, and he's come out and said that. I would never say that about somebody if they hadn't said that, come out publicly and said I didn't pick to leave. What purpose did it serve? But the other side of the coin is I'm always complaining when they don't kill people off, or they dangle something in front of you and then it turns out to be fine. Like the David and Daisy car crash where David was gonna die to sacrifice himself, and then Daisy got in the way.
She did lose the baby.
You didn't want to. Wasn't a character. you didn't want to lose any of those characters, but equally don't put them in mortal peril if you're not gonna,
Yeah, because so often you think they'll be okay.
They'll be fine. Whereas with Craig, we didn't. Well, I mean, I was 90% sure that he was going to die. We knew that Coulson was leaving. I couldn't see how he's going to get out of it. I've been hit by a thug, so I'm going to go and live in Norfolk. It didn't really make sense.
No.
How he would exit from that.
I think another kind of thing that a lingering issue I had with that was that it was in a time when we just had Julie's death then as well, because it was like, oh gosh, another one bites again. The dust.
So many people have died this year as well.
Yeah, Mason, Julie, Craig have been our main ones, haven't they?
But that's still way more than usual. In the first 6 months of a year, those are all major characters.
I still don't forgive Corrie for bringing Julie back only to kill her off. That was my biggest emotional reaction this year, because I was so excited about Katie Kavanagh coming back in the role of Julie, and just from that very first episode when she was there in Chariot Square, I was like, yes, she's brilliant, she's fun, she's smiley, she's campy, she's hilarious. And then what could her secret be? And then to the next episode, like, oh, she's got cancer. And that was gutting, but I still enjoyed having a lot of her on screen, and she's still up there fairly high actually in the number of appearances this year. They really used her a lot, and she was another positive exit storyline. I love the stuff with her and Eileen.
Not the Eileen being accused of killing her.
No, not that bit. Just her, Julie's final weeks. I really enjoyed seeing, and the trip out. There was going to be a trip out, but they ended up staying in the Rovers. She was just a really positive, shining light in Coronation Street in a time when lots of people were saying it's a bit miserable and dank and dark and gritty at the moment. She was absolutely wonderful, and the storyline. If they were going to kill her off, if they really wanted to kill her off, it could have been worse the way that they did it. At least I fairly enjoyed watching it. It felt like she was taken from us too soon, especially when I think the initial prognosis was that maybe she would last until early summer, I think she said. So when they whipped her away from us a couple of months ago, I was like, no, not ready to say goodbye yet. But that, of course, was there to facilitate Sue Cleaver's exit, so another huge name going. Her exit storyline was fine. Bit sad about her and George splitting up. I like the taxi salute that she got as she rolled off down the street. But yeah, just so many exits.
Can I give props to Julie for doing a dying of cancer storyline without having any hospital scenes at all?
She did sit on a bench outside a hospital once, didn't she, with Kevin?
She didn't make us watch her in a bed with a tube up her nose.
That's very true.
Good for you, Julie.
Good for you indeed, Julie.
Now, of a year of leaks and announcements that were forced rather than planned, I find it, I don't know what to think about this, and I feel quite bad about it, really, that Bobby left and no one knew. I know. Obviously, he wanted to have a low-key exit, but the fact that it wasn't even reported, even though I think people would have known that he'd gone, is that not like super damning of the character that not even the son could be bothered to write about it? And again, this is not any slight on the actor, because he did what he was, he performed it as it was done. I think he did a great job. I know that Jack Carroll in real life is so talented and hilarious. It's such a shame.
The part just didn't work.
The
character didn't work.
It was like that character out Married with Children, was it Seven or something, that kid's name? Where it's like, yeah, I've been here the whole time. Yeah, I have been. I've been Carla's nephew the whole time. I'm Rob's son. What a hugely significant character he is in the history of Coronation Street, and what an absolute waste of a time he was.
Yeah, but I'm glad that, because sometimes when something's not working well on Corrie, they still keep on running with it.
They still did it for a lot longer than they should have done, in my opinion. My hope is that they will regroup and readdress it, and maybe bring him back with a slightly different personality.
Think that's needed.
I think the world would continue to be fine if Bobby never comes back to Corrie. But again, my heart breaks for Jack Carroll, because this is not how you want anyone's experience to be on Corrie to be.
No, it's a shame.
But like I said, forcing people to like a character, or sort of making it so that this person's lovable and fun, it just doesn't ever work, because that's not how audiences...
I mean, it works with Glenda, doesn't it? She's brought in as a lovable, fun, smiley, twinkly-eyed breath of fresh air, but she's not telling jokes all the time, I suppose.
I don't know what to say, really. I think, yeah.
Tell you what, I mean, speaking of Glenda, because another big thing, I suppose a huge change in Corrie this year has been the change of ownership of the Rovers, and the money story, which we thought had kind of been quietly dropped, came back into the foreground again.
What a story
and
that was.
I enjoyed that story, and we've made no secret of the fact that we are huge Jenny fans, huge Sally Ann Matthews fans, and I never wanted Jenny to leave the Rovers. I think that she had a nice final scene in there when she said goodbye, but I really, really loved Glenda. I cannot fault Glenda as temporary manager of the Rovers, because that's what she's been brought in as, hasn't she? I don't think it's been saying, oh yeah, you're going to be there forever.
No, I think managers are a very rare beast on Coronation Street. I don't think they get as much kudos and attention as the landlords and landladies of the Rovers, but the managers are like a different breed. And Glenda really's got landlady potential, but she obviously didn't have the cash to back her.
No, I think that she's possibly a bit of a one-trick pony, but I'm really enjoying that trick at the moment, and it's the singing and the performing and the karaoke and the event nights, because this is what people have been asking for more in Coronation Street. And sure, I'm not going to make out that it's back to how it used to be, but the Rovers has been a bit fuller recently.
This is what Kate Brooks promised. She talked about these sorts of scenes in friendships and
yes, you're right. That was another thing she said. A bit more friendship, and we've seen some of it. I quite like what they're doing with Betsy and Lauren, actually, because we've not been loving Lauren so much the last year or so, but I think I do quite like their friendship. And we got tease of it even in this week's episode when we had Cassie and Sally, potentially they could be friends there. We've seen a few bits like that. Tracy and Leanne at the beginning of this year. I tell you what, by the end of January, I was thinking 2025 is going great guns. I was really singing the praises of Corrie for the first month of the year, and part of it was that relationship, maybe unlikely, I don't know, between Leanne and Tracy, just who enjoyed being bitchy about everyone and being horrible to Toya. That was a load of fun. Leanne getting drunk. I suppose that's been another change of ownership, hasn't it? Now that Leanne's moved from the Bistro to Speedar. But I love that. I loved all the knife crime stuff. There was a lot more Platts at the forefront, which was good for me. It just kind of, some of the stories that have come after that, and some of that has been what's been going on in the Websters, I'm afraid to say, has just made it go a bit more downhill for me. But yeah, first month of the year, really, really loved. And I would hope that Kate Brooks' commitment to fostering and showing these friendships continues, because we've also seen it more with like Dee Dee and Sarah Louise and Alia. They were pals for a bit, weren't they?
Pals?
Exactly. So I just want to keep going with it, but with block storytelling, you can't really keep going with anything, can you? That's the problem.
My big wish for 2026 is that block storytelling becomes obsolete, because
that's been our wish for years.
Moving to back to 5 episodes.
Yeah, I suppose that could facilitate a change, couldn't it? I think we'll park that part of it, because I want to talk later about some of the off-screen developments of Coronation Street and the tease of the Emmerdale crossover and the new filming schedule. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about later. What about, we said this year has 100% undeniably been the year of exits. We've also had a few interesting comebacks, haven't we? Julie and Rob we've already discussed, and one worked better than the other for me. Maybe we've talked about the main ones. Christina was great. Do they count?
Yeah, the ghosts count. I mean, why stop with just Seb and Joel? Why not have more?
That's how Kate Brooks likes to think.
I don't get it. I do get it, but I don't get it. I think it's been overdone now. I think we can probably not do it again.
Nobody would disagree with you there.
And I hate that, because I love ghosts. I love characters coming back. Stuff. I like surprises. It's just done too much. Mm-hmm. It's like we used to make, like when we were students, we used to make a chicken dish, which was chicken breast with
bacon
boursin
wrapped around it,
and bacon wrapped around it. And if I ever eat that again, I will be sick, because we ate that so much.
Yeah,
and it's
and
like
this was 20 years ago,
and it was gorgeous. It was like our favourite thing, but we ate it too much, and now we don't want it anymore. And that's the same with Ghosts on Coronation Street.
Yeah, they need to. Knock that one
it
on the
was.
head.
It doesn't count because it was at the end of 2024, but. We already had Richard Hillman
back,
and
oh yeah.
So we had 4 ghosts in the space of 6 months, and I'm all ghosted out really. It's not Ghost Adventures, it's Coronation Street. It's not The Bill, it's Coronation Street. It's not, why is it trying to be things it's not? I don't know.
Yeah. What about we've got Jason as a comeback. Would you? It was like what, a week? He was back in it.
Yeah, he was. It wasn't like a full week, but it was like 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Over.
I really am glad that Sue picked up the phone and spoke to Ryan and said, "I'm leaving, will you come back?" Because I knew when he came back that it wasn't going to be long, so I wasn't sitting there going, "Oh, I hope he stays." I just got to enjoy him for the short period I knew he'd be there, and he was great. And it was just like the old days. Yeah, his costume had changed a little bit, and he got older, but haven't we all? I thought that was really fun, and some of the bickering that went on between Todd and Jason, and the slaps around the back of the head from Eileen, that to me was just great classic Corrie. I tell you, a comeback this year that's been utterly bizarre, and I still don't know why they've done it. Doran.
I was going to say Doran. Doran is an essential part of Coronation Street.
What
Do you remember during lockdown when we had essential workers? That is Doran for Coronation Street.
Has he been in like 2 episodes since? He's
been praised mightily for 5 seconds and now treated like absolute dirt and never mentioned again. Just like essential workers during lockdown.
I just don't get it. So we have got slamming doors here because we're recording with the windows open because it's too hot. Gemma's doing something about it. She's propping it open. Go on, Gemma. Prop that door.
I'm going to use a bit of bedding that we're going to take to the vets for sick animals.
When Doran came back into the show, everyone was happy because the little blighter who chatters away when he really should be staying quiet is so adorable.
Maybe he's suddenly hit puberty and they're like locking him away.
But we've not seen anything from inside number 9, have we?
What was the point of it? We haven't seen hide nor hair of Fizz and Tyrone. We haven't seen Doran. We don't know what's happened to the flooded apartment of either Lisa Swain or Alina Pop.
Yeah, but then of course you have got the fact that Evelyn is no longer with us.
She'll be back pretty soon.
Will she?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it was always supposed to be a temporary thing, and hopefully, if Maureen does.
Well, no, Maureen Lipman just said, "Look, it's not my main job anymore. I've got a new husband. I want to enjoy my life. I'm retirement age. This is just a hobby." How are you finding? Good for her, I say.
How are you finding the new James? Speaking of comebacks,
I've always said that Michael had this children's TV presenter vibe.
Yeah.
Because he was a children's TV presenter, the actor, wasn't he?
Yeah, Ryan.
He's just got that really like charismatic and approachable, like non like super masculine, like but parent figure energy. Like. I would let him look after my kid. That kind of a bloke. I'm not worried about you. You're non-threatening, I think is probably the phrase I'm looking for. And James never had that at all. James was a lot more reserved and a bit of a blank space to me, really, without trying to be rude. But the new James also has children's television presenter energy, don't you think?
I think so.
He's just got this kind of like... What would you say? It's like primary school teacher, like
I buy that they're brothers.
Yes,
I still.
That's true. They seem a lot more. I mean, barely have they had any scenes together to compare them, to be quite frank. But yeah, they definitely seem more like family related than James did.
I'm still struggling to see him as James.
Yeah, me too.
Because he is so different.
He's just. I mean, for a start, he's a completely different height.
Yeah. And
they definitely have not bothered. I mean, was there ever a time when they cared about the way a character looked?
No, and we've said before, with the likes of Ben Price being recast as Nick, Gareth Pearce as Todd, they also nothing like previous ones. But the strength of the performing and the writing behind the performance helped me buy into them. And I think it's still a bit too early days for James. And I'm like, he's fine. But at the moment, I wouldn't. If he disappeared, if he went and said, "Oh, actually, I'm gonna turns out I'm back together with Danny. We're going to move off to America. At the moment, I wouldn't be sad.
There's nothing about his persona at the moment that screams to me, I'm a sexy, like a confident gay man who wants a baby. Like, it just feels like he's another Michael.
He's still, I would say, he's still kind of plot device character.
Him moving in on Todd was totally at odds with his personality. That I got the vibes of him, like, yeah, I'm a friendly family guy, and here I am now, like, you know, getting sexy with Todd. And I'm not saying that family guys can't be sexy. I'm just saying, like, in a soap, you exude a vibe, and you either play to it or against it. And I don't think they're trying to play against it. I think that they've just cast a guy who's got this, like, really lovely energy, and I still don't really get what he's about. Like, making the move on Todd, even though he knows he was going with Theo because he's confused, because he's upset because of Danny, and, like, Danny, but, like, what the whole thing with Danny and James, not surrogacy, but adopting Layla. That just felt also like a plot device rather than any kind of established thing, because, like, James never once said, I want a family, you know. No, when he was struggling with being gay, like, one of the things you'd think would come up was, I want a family and I don't know if I can, because that's a real big struggle. And I know it's not an insurmountable one, but it certainly makes things slightly more complicated.
I think that they've not really worried about what was James like before. No. They want him to be what's he like now. There's almost like, let's blank slate start again, because also we're seeing the story with him at odds with Dee Dee's faith, which I'm finding really fascinating. But I wouldn't say that the old James would just been, oh yeah, okay, you can kiss now, whatever.
You would have thought also this tension would have arisen before now.
You'd have thought so after this time. You'd have thought that it might have been brought up more than you know, earlier than a month, 2 months into her being born.
I love that conflict. I think that is going to be really interesting. And because Dee Dee's faith has been portrayed so positively and such an important part of her coping mechanism and what keeps her, you know, on an even keel, because she's got such a high pressure job. She's had such a lot of really terrible things happen to her. You know, her parents with, you know, splitting up, and her dad having addiction issues with gambling, and, like, nearly marrying a murderer. All of these things, her faith has kept her level-headed throughout. But then you've also got James, who has a perfectly reasonable objection to his child, you know, being inducted into a religion that he doesn't agree with.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting.
What a great conflict.
Yeah.
And I'm quite confident.
Personality's been made up for it.
Yeah, I'm quite confident that Corrie's gonna do it in a way that doesn't really pick sides, because that's really boring. Apart from the fact that, you know, sometimes you're not going to agree with the side they pick, it is really boring to sort of do this character's clearly wrong. Mm-hmm. And because of how positive her faith is to her, I think that Dee Dee's going to be portrayed sympathetically, and Corrie's been really good with religion recently.
They have, and I don't think that Shanique would want to play a story that was casting
demonising
Christianity. So that's another reason why I'm quite fascinated to watch it.
Not that you know, I'm invested in promoting religion on Coronation Street. I don't think that's the place. It's not the place for it. I don't think that anybody really wants that, but it's such an integral part to some people's lives that to not portray it with sympathy and empathy and like giving it the due that it deserves would be a disservice. And this is why I've kind of been disappointed on the whole with how, like, Muslim characters are portrayed, because their faith is so important and such an important part of their lives, and it kind of, like, it impacts on so many things. And they just never really show it, because I don't know why.
But also with Christians, we've said in the past that so often it's easy to go down the route of religious nut job, isn't it? And I think with Dee Dee at the moment they're getting it right. I mean, I know as we're recording this, she's just about to do a secret christening, and it's like, oh, that's a bit of a extreme.
I wouldn't say that as a good move, really.
No, but I think on the whole they're getting it right, and I think the same with Billy. Again, on the whole,
I think Coronation Street is going to condemn Dee Dee for this. It's not like they're she's not going to get away with this. This
No.
is clearly the wrong thing to do, even if she thinks she's doing it for the right reason. So yeah, I'm fascinated to see where this is going to go.
Yeah. If you think about this year as a whole, because at this stage of the year, we usually have an idea about, so what's the big story of the year? What's the one that's going to get the awards nominations? What's the one that
what's
people
the
are
A
going to...
story? Because we know that each episode has normally 5 story strands, don't they? The A story,
roughly,
B, blah, blah, blah. And they get given different levels of importance for how long they're going to run. But also equally, every year will have pretty much like a couple or one A story.
And I think it's been really quite hard this year to pick out what the main one is. But if I was to, if somebody was to put a gun to my head and say, what's the main story of the year, I'd probably say everything that's going on at the Websters. And
that's really interesting because the Websters were a much neglected family, because at one point the only one left really was Kevin. And who cares about Kevin?
Yeah, Sally's gone across the road at this point. Not enough Sally in 2025, can I say? And I've loved the stuff that she has been in with Tim. Loved the hot tub episode. Loved the stuff with the fostering meeting where Sally had to play along. But you're right, the Websters had hardly been in it at all, which is a shame, because Abby has been one of my favourite characters.
But when was the last time? This feels a bit to me like what Kate Oates did when she came in and went, let's do the Barlows. It's been the Platt show for too long. Let's do a Barlow Renaissance. This feels like Kate Brooks. I'm not saying this is what she's doing, but it feels like Kate Brooks has gone, why aren't the Websters more important?
Yeah. But the problem is, to do that properly, you've got to say, we are going to bring back Rosie and or Sophie, unfortunately. And although it's really good that they've cast Carl, this character who we've known the existence of for 40 years, I think if they really, really wanted to invest in the Websters more, they should have brought in one of the girls. But I suppose the other thing...
what I'm going to say, controversially, I know that both the actresses...
Brooke and
Helen are clearly iconic for the parts. If it's an issue of timing or money, which I to be honest with me, I think it's the money. I think they should just recast them.
I don't know.
I would hate it and I'd complain and I'd give them, whoever was cast, I'd give them crap for probably a year. But if it's the difference between having Rosie and Sophie and not, the thing is, Helen Flanagan's portrayal of Rosie, you couldn't do it. You would just be a parody. You'd just be an impersonation. You'd have to completely rethink her character.
Yeah, how she changed in Japan for all these years.
What would be the point of her if you're bringing her back and she's not Helen Flanagan?
Yeah, I know.
Maybe this is what they've had discussions about. I genuinely...
Well, Helen said herself that she'd like to come back as Rosie with a baby.
Which makes me think it's money.
Yeah.
Because if she wants to come back, everyone wants her to come back. What was the party line was, there are no stories for Rosie at the moment. It's you're talking rubbish.
There aren't there?
That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all, because there's never been more Webster in the show.
But I suppose maybe where the Websters isn't quite working for me this year is there's 3 main Webster stories on the go, isn't there? And they
can't
got the dementia.
Not do it though. They can't.
They got the dementia. They got Kevin's cancer. They got the bubbling affair with with Carl and Abby. You also had Abby's PTSD, which was just quite major for the first couple of months of the year, and it's almost felt like they've thrown a bit too much at the Websters. Maybe I'd enjoy it more if it was a little bit more focused. I.e., get rid of the affair.
I know what you're saying. It's not as bad as we've had before, where. For example, the Ryan and Daisy storyline that started off as, let's explore what the psychological impact of an acid attack is. And they went, no.
Let's
just chuck a brilliant, let's just have a sex chat line and an affair as well. Let's just throw everything into this and never actually focus on the actual story that is at hand. At least these 3 things are all intertwined.
Yeah.
I suppose there's no link. There's no link between Debbie's dementia and the cancer, but they are both playing off of each other, and the affair is. There will be developments soon that kind of justify that as a story trope. I don't know. I think that Corrie really does have a attention span problem sometimes with the stories, where it's you know, when you're an actor and you do improv and you have to say, and, yes, and, all the time. Like, you know, Kevin's got cancer, yes, and Abby's got PTSD, yes, and Debbie's got dementia, yes, and also Kevin's long lost brother returns, yes, and he's having an affair with Abby, yes, and he's also doing an MOT dodgy thing on the side, yes, and he's also got business problems back in Germany. Like, okay, let's just sit down for a minute and pick one.
It'd be interesting to know what came first, and I would say it's probably the dementia storyline. And they said, so what can we do? Because, it feels to me that they didn't say, tell you what, we really need to get Carl Webster back, or we really need Abby to have an affair. It feels like they had this idea for the Debbie dementia storyline, which is, I think, going to be the longest running of all of these storylines. And they said, well, how can we spice that up a little bit? I don't think it necessarily needed it. But then equally it does make it a little bit more different than the Paul one, because there was the risk as it could just have been a rehash of Paul's MND.
Yeah. I also, you know, I'm not going to give Corrie props for it, but I do think that they've been working on a bit of exposure therapy for me for people with cancer.
Do you reckon? Because
we've had cancer after cancer after cancer. We've had stomach cancer with Laura. We had Toya had ovarian cancer. We had we've got Kevin having testicular cancer. We had Julie having whatever it was she had. I've forgotten now.
Stomach, wasn't it?
Was it stomach again?
Something there. Something in the midriff.
I don't think there's ever been a point in Coronation Street where somebody on screen hasn't had cancer. And, you know, I had to skip out on...
The Toya one,
No, I skipped out on Toya's and I skipped out on Sinead's when that happened. And now it's like... Oh yeah, everyone's just got cancer. You just haven't found it yet.
The Webster story to me is just misery, really, and the exciting bit, which is the affair. I'm saying no, I don't want that to happen. But the shining light through it all has been Sue Devaney, who has been so underused since she came back into the show 5 years ago. And it's gutting that this story, which is eventually going to see her depart, will it be this year? No. Will it be next year? Probably 27, quite possibly. But I don't care. We've seen so much more of it. I think she's up there in the top 10 of appearances, and I'm sure who knows what she actually thinks about the way that this has gone for her, because she's saying one thing in the press, but yeah, she's playing it spectacularly, isn't she? She's so much fun. She's great. She's campy. She's funny. She's just got so much feist in her for such a little thing. She's scrappy doing the heck out of Corrie at the moment.
She be little, she be fierce.
Exactly. And she's almost had more appearances this year than I would imagine she's had combined in the last 5. And yeah, we're going to see the end of her, but I can't help but love it. And sometimes when I know something bad's going to happen, I'm like, I refuse to enjoy any of the build up to it. But I am loving this. She is so good. And everybody said it had happened, didn't they? When the rumours started, the rumour mill started last year saying that they wanted to kill off Debbie, they were going to give her dementia. Everybody said, this is gutting. We don't want it to happen to this character. Why on earth are you doing it to her and not, Eileen, for example? But Sue Devaney's going to knock it out of the park, and she absolutely has. We knew that she would. We knew that she would. And that's part of
the reason why we didn't want her to do it.
Yeah.
And in an ideal world, I'd like to not have it happen.
Yeah.
But if we all had our way, nobody would ever have anything bad happen to them on Coronation Street, even the people we don't like, because it's still hard to watch.
I'm just kind of scrolling down our notes a bit and seeing whether there's any other stories to mop up. I will say, we talked about the Michaelis earlier. Do you remember when the silver van mystery was rampant and we were like, oh, whose is the silver van, and what's going to happen when Chesney and Mick confront each other about the sugar in the... None of that happened, did it?
Also, do you remember when...
Mick knew all along, and then Chesney found out it was, and then they just didn't really talk about it. That was a massive flub.
And do you remember when Chesney had incredible money issues because he had to pay a load of money to Mick for his van, and then he just did?
Yeah, I know.
And in order to do it, he had to go to a food event in London.
Oh yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad they've ditched Gemma and Chesney's money problems, because it just became farcical.
Yeah, it's always solved very easily. I think I was talking earlier about really enjoying the first month of the year, and I think the other story that helped that was the poisoning of Ken. And I know lots of people didn't enjoy that, but I loved it. And yes, the producers are saying, oh, it's going to be a story about care of the elderly and the relationship that goes on between the carer and then it didn't turn out to be that at all, and how on earth is Cassie getting a redemption story, but I totally forgive it. And it's just because I think that Cassie's fab, and having her as a really talented, fun actress acting alongside the ledge that is William Roach. So many gold scenes there, and even like having the bits where, who was it? Was it Bertie that overheard or saw her putting the medicine into Ken's tea? And then you had the story where Cassie got arrested and Tracy was there saying, yeah, arrest the skank. Tracy versus Cassie is brilliant, and Tracy's needed a rival for so long, because we had that massive rivalry with Carla about 10 years or so ago, didn't we? And I think that one thing that Kate Brooks has done has put a little bit more spark into Tracy. Even like when she was there in the Rovers a couple of weeks ago, spreading all the poison about Eileen supposedly having bumped off Julie. Yeah. That's been a really fun Tracy that I've liked seeing more of it, and the Cassie story has helped that for me. Have you enjoyed Cassie?
I really like Cassie. I think it's kind of hilarious that they had a story where the longest running character was nearly poisoned, and it was just like a funny camp.
I know. It's bad, isn't it? It's
no,
bad.
I don't think it's bad. It's not.
You shouldn't like it, but
why? Not everything's an issue. We're going to do an issue story about it. No.
I suppose that's true. That's true. We're so used to the morally correct side always winning.
The issue that arises is that it's really like you have to really signal to your audience like this is not an issue storyline, and I think they did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
But it's just a little difficult because there's so many mixed messages about like, no, this is a serious storyline, no, this is just a silly storyline, why are you getting so invested in this storyline? You should be worried about X, Y, and Z. What's going on with
Kevin's balls?
If you go to itv.com/advice, there's no like, what if your car is poisoning you like thing to click on, is there? So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Even though actually you could make a serious storyline out of it, and you could accuse Coronation Street of downplaying it and not taking victims seriously, but that's the price you pay when you start to dabble in, well, not dabble, but you start to do, this is issues, this is not. Mm-hmm. Like the character of Shona having a brain injury, that wasn't an issue storyline. That's a silly caper.
When she came back and was a little bit different.
Yeah.
Another thing that I really enjoyed about the Ken story was it was him that twigged her in the end. He was the one that found out.
That was empowering. I think
it was.
I think that was the only thing that could kind of like let them get away with it in a sense. And I don't feel like they have to justify everything, but you're going to get criticism for doing things like this. You got to cover your back a little bit, and Ken empowering himself and being the agent of his rescue was, he's not a helpless old man.
Yeah. Anything else? I mean, we talked a little bit about Layla, but that story to me has still felt a little bit PSA.
Dee Dee's. That there were a few
and it is an important issue. It really, really is. But
there are a couple of very clumsy scenes this year that I don't remember being quite as boldly clumsy when they've tried to do this before. But I'm sure they have been. One was when Dee Dee had this discussion in the pub with everybody about maternal deaths and black women, and it was really jarring because it felt like Maria and Audrey were trying to connect with her on a level about their maternal experiences, and Dee Dee was like, no, as a black woman my experience is not the same as yours. And it felt a bit wrong-footed because these are two like really iconic characters that have been on the show for a long time, and Dee Dee as a newcomer kind of shutting them down and saying, no, we're not the same, my experience was worse. She is correct, I just don't feel like that was the right way to send that message. I think that it got a lot of people's backs up, unfortunately. And the other really clumsy one was just the assisted suicide one where Billy was shut up, you don't know what you're talking about. Assisted suicide is thumbs up from me. Yeah. Even though we watched him agonise over Paul deciding to take that choice for himself, and you know, reluctantly agreeing, and then that really harrowing episode where they got to midnight and it was about to happen, and the relief when Paul changed his mind. You just needed so much more out of that scene than just Billy going, "Don't worry, the government will sort it out and it'll all be fine." That was silly. But Dee Dee's birthday experience, I'm glad they haven't dropped that element of the story. I don't like the idea that maybe the trauma of their birth is kind of something that's stopping her from bonding with Layla. I think it's really important that they bring it up, but I think, I don't know, is it getting lost on now Layla's the custody of Layla? It feels like
I'm a bit more invested in the custody of Layla's story, to be honest.
I think I'm really glad they did that with Dee Dee. I think that she's a great character to explore, like the really terrible way that women are treated, and black women especially. I think it got a bit confusing at points, but it's a confusing topic because unfortunately sometimes you are going to minimise other people's real trauma by saying yes, but black women.
Yeah, I know.
You know, it's really hard, and this is the whole reason why it happens. So it raised a lot of really uncomfortable questions. I think it sparked some debate. I'm not sure that it's been as latched onto as a lot of the other characters, like Debbie's dementia. But I really applaud Coronation Street for doing it, because I think also just the birthing and pregnancy experience in general has really been done so badly on soaps, just in general.
Do you think?
Yeah, I do, because I think that pregnant women are a joke sometimes in fiction. Like,
Pop it out in the back of a taxi.
Well, yeah, like, even Fizz screaming during that live episode, comically, like just women screaming and everyone going, "Oh, all right, calm down, you're having a baby," and the pregnancy cravings and. Women, it feels like there's so much trauma and sadness connected to pregnancy
in real life
that's never really been fully explored, because it makes people super uncomfortable, and it also scares women too.
Well, I mean, the birth rate's already dropping, isn't it? You don't want to put even more people off.
Well, think about what happened with like Toya and stuff.
Speaking of Toya, I will say 2025, where is she? I know that she was all over the place last year, but then so was Dee Dee, and she still had a lot more screen time than our Toya.
I don't remember who you're talking about.
I loved, we had the fight at Christmas, didn't we, between Toya and Leanne, and that was fun during the first few weeks of the year. But seriously, what's she done since? Hired a scooter, and that's about it.
Hired Scooter Makuna and driven off on him.
Maybe wherever she is, I think she's with Sam, because he's been missing in action as well. And Adam. I'm not particularly as fussed about
March
Adam.
or April was the last time he was seen.
Yeah, I'm not particularly that fussed about Adam, and I'm really in no way invested in the Adam and Alia relationship either.
No, boring. Adam's like one of those rare Scottish wildcats that you only see in a mountain.
Yeah, and then every time you see it, its fur is in a slightly different...
Yeah, like matted and like wild. I really enjoyed the Leanne and Toya fallout over Nick. I thought that should have been a lot more. There should have been a lot more scenes with that.
Toya and Leanne are still at each other's throats, aren't they? Yet we don't see it. No. I was expecting them to have made up by now, and they will, won't they? Yeah. But I'm surprised we've not seen that happen just yet.
I do love that, and also Sam. You know, maybe they're holding back on Leanne and Toya stuff, so they can get Sam involved in it.
I'm sure they'll be back in it with more before the end of the year.
Yeah. And also, what happened to Harvey? Harvey just like disappeared in a puff of smoke.
Well, Harvey, he wasn't actually in the show this year, was he?
Happened.
That was the problem with one of the problems with that story is that they were being threatened by this villain who we never actually got to see on screen.
No, it's like it's like being in America during, was it the 60s, and it's the threat of communism, you better watch out. It's like, it's Harvey, he's going to get you.
I know. So that's kind of it.
I mean, I'll tell you another place, another thing I could do without is the STC and all the naughty...
Oh yeah, speaking of prison.
All the naughty boys. I'm sick of naughty boys. I say, put them in the cupboard. let's leave him in there.
For sure, absolutely. Right, that's kind of it for 2025 in Corrie news.
We could have spoken about so many things in greater depth, but you've heard our opinions. It
feels like that's enough.
On a day-to-day.
And I don't want my voice to go completely...
No, I know. You've got to save it for your
birthday. My birthday tomorrow, after all. I want to be able to... I know people can sing happy birthday to me, but maybe I want to join in.
Well, exactly. You're going to have to lead it, because it's only me doing it.
So other thing, we always like to see how's the podcast doing this way through the year. We've obviously this year seen the end of Corrie Eliminator.
Yeah, I know. What a great idea that was I had.
That was a fantastic idea. We still got the listener vote to come. Voting is now closed.
It's not
for
finished.
That.
It's not over. Don't start crying.
Yeah.
We've still got a finale
to come. I think that was fun. We've also had a good number of interviews this year. Thelma Barlow.
That was amazing.
I still can't believe that happened.
Also, Julia Goulding, because absolutely bloody love her.
Yes.
And she, she's also a Scottish wildcat. So elusive. Hiding.
I just loved that the interview was done as she was walking through the countryside.
Whenever
that was one of my best.
See her, I just love her. I think she's fantastic. Yeah. And you also had Luca Torlin.
Yes.
Really great.
He was fun. Shelley, again.
Yeah. Yasmin.
I also enjoyed the interview that we had with Al Parr.
Yeah, I know. That was so good.
Behind the scenes Corrie
And this
tour.
was it was like a massive scoop too, because he had the story of the biggest... he got to watch Craig's
death. Yeah. So hopefully we have more. There's no more cast interviews planned at the moment, but I always live in hope that second half of the year we'll be able to get a load more. But we watch this space, I suppose. And we haven't had any big trips to Manchester yet. We did go to Liverpool to get a gravestone. That's been a bit of a podcast highlight for the year for me. Have we
not been to Manchester at all?
We have not. The last trip to Manchester was in November, but we're going next week, aren't we, for our Webster's walk? So we'll soon be fixing that. But yeah, I'm Stan's headstone being rescued from some guy's garden. It was certainly one of our biggest capers.
That was hilarious, and it also such an unloved video.
I know. Oh well, we had a good time.
Same as my recipe cookbook one. I think will be.
You've only put that on today.
I know, but I don't think anyone
cares. It might be discovered.
But it does go to prove when we say we create this, and we do it for ourselves, and we love it that you join in, but we would talk to ourselves even if you weren't here. I think it's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's we totally appreciate everyone's support, but it does go to show you that we're not performing. We're not saying things because we want to be popular or. We want everyone to agree with us, or only saying things because everyone else says it. We it doesn't.
Just saying it as it is.
This is what we think. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to talk about. And join us if you like it.
Yeah.
So, but also, Soap Week I think is like I'm kind of nervous about it, and I'm excited
next week, innit?
I need everyone to help me. But like I said, this is not a one and done. This is going to be an annual thing. I see how this one goes.
Learn some lessons.
Probably learn some hard lessons.
Well, I'm very proud of you for sticking with it.
It's Michael knows this better than anybody.
You're not much of a sticker-atter.
I am not a tenacious. I'm more of an ideas kind of girl. You're like you're the person who carries everything out. You're like the diligent worker bee, and I'm I don't know what I am. I think I'm the bee that shags the queen and dies. As far as putting in the effort goes.
No, you did a good job on this.
Yeah. So I also just want to quickly say, just to commit myself, that probably next year, Soap Week will be the 6th to the 12th of July.
Okay.
But this year it's the 7th to the 13th, and this will, I think. This is gonna be our legacy as a podcast, probably.
100%.
I really like the idea. I'm really so happy and thrilled. I couldn't be more happy about how much the other fan sites and podcasts have engaged with this idea.
Awesome.
It's really because of them that we've been able to. They've got really buoyed me up, actually. Just how gracious and excited and enthusiastic.
And some of the videos that they've made.
Coronation Street, Aadi doing those videos was just so wonderful. Going on Albert Square After Dark with Rob.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's been super supportive, and I think uniting the soaps and the soap fandoms in Soap Week is a positive thing.
So join us.
Yeah.
Come on a walk with us as well.
You can't beat us, so you got to join us.
Right. My voice is just about ready to go, Gemma, so I'm going to leave it to you to sign off for the evening.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to this wonderful episode of our podcast. We are going to be back at, well, I don't know when we'll be back, because I think that's the end of Corrie tomorrow, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's nothing
no
on Friday,
episode,
so we might be back earlier than you think.
Well, we're not
by a great
We can't
amount.
record it on Thursday because we're going out for birthday dinner for me on Thursday.
I just said it's not going to be that much sooner. And then next week it's going to be a bit in flux because we've got the Manchester trip right at the end of the week, which is also the only time they're showing Coronation Street.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work.
But don't worry about that. That's something to worry about another day.
Something for us to worry about, not you.
You can worry about what podcast you're going to listen to next, I guess.
Absolutely.
So enjoy it.
Thanks everybody for listening. Bye.
Bye.